Are you ready to branch out, to take a leap of faith, to love yourself and others fully? Then let go of whatever no longer serves you to take action now on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Erica will energize and excite you to power up your passionate dream that sets your soul on fire. With Erica's E3 approach, equipping, empowering, and enlightening yourself so you can be yourself for yourself. Get ready and get rooted to live a life without regrets, without what ifs, without should haves, and especially without empty feelings from a life unexplored. This hit show helps you build powerful and intentional roots to live it up, love it up, and let it go. Get fearlessly ready and powerfully rooted in your yes with your host, Erica Gifford Mills, and be fearless about your more and stand in your yes. Now on Get Rooted Radio.
Welcome, everyone. I am Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio, living it up, loving it up, letting it go, right here on Transformation Talk Radio. A big shout out, as always, to my producer today, Moxie. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I can't complain, as always.
I'll see. I mean, we say we could complain, but who would listen, right? And we don't want that stuff in our head. But we are going to talk about something very exciting and very meaningful today. So today's episode is titled, Find Your Purpose, Live Your Brand. And this really reminds me of the saying, life is made up of two dates, the date you were born, the date you die, and a dash. And you should always make the most of the dash. And that is what my guest, Myra Rosario, and I will be talking about today during the episode. We will be digging into living authentically, from finding your purpose to overcoming challenges. We will inspire and assist all of you listeners to live a more balanced and fulfilling life. But first, a little bit about my guest. Myra Rosario is a successful entrepreneur and community influencer with over 20 years of sales, media, marketing, and video production experience. Myra's career began in radio advertising, which led to her starting Latino Cleveland in 2007, an online platform targeting Northeast Ohio's Hispanic business and entertainment communities. One of her most notable accomplishments, which launched her coaching career, was becoming executive producer and hosting her own weekly variety television show on NBC affiliate WKYC Channel 3 between 2014 and 2017. The show was called Yo Soy Latino Cleveland and highlighted and promoted Cleveland's Hispanic community. Myra currently invests in a variety of projects as a full-time media producer, advising companies on how to tell their brand story and reshaping their advertising message to really fit cultural groups. Myra calls herself a Cleveland Rican as a first-generation Latina from a predominantly Puerto Rican neighborhood on Cleveland's west side. She's a graduate of Brave Thinking Masters and shares her entrepreneurship studies with her coaching clients. Please help me welcome to the show, Myra Rosario. Myra, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, man, I feel so blessed to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. And it just, our purposes align. So.
Yes. Oh, no. And I truly believe that, because as we said, in the intro, what the show is about, life is about living between the dashes, right? We have so much. It's not just about when we're born and waiting till we die. We have so much to give to ourselves, our families, our communities, and everybody we touch. And I think that is what is so important in remembering. It starts locally, and we can all have that ripple effect as we go out through our community, and then that those people touch other people, then it goes to the world. And I think that understanding how to do that is just what you do. And I love that you're on the show. So let's start out with just that. Tell us about your background and about your brand and really how you define the definition of brand.
So thank you for the question. Well, first of all, life is a journey. I like to say that I identify as 36, but I have been around for 47 moons. You know what I mean? So life is a journey. So I remember, trying to push things really fast, but over time and in reflection, I would say that, finding your purpose and living your brand, what that really means for me is and I have a little exercise that I can share with you later, but when you really figure out what your purpose is, you know that that is what you're called to do here on this earth. I mean, we don't all make it to this earth. I mean, we know that little babies don't make it to this earth, and we do. When you really grow gratitude for being alive, being connected into this great creation and realizing that you're part of the creation and really living in a state of gratitude, shedding fearlessness and shame. And I have some tools and exercises that I can share with you later on that have worked for me to dissolve some of that. But, when you find out what your purpose is, you live your brand because, for me, living my brand, we're different things because, I started my company as Latino Cleveland, but it's rebranded within the last 2 years to LC Media Plus. And we're a full service media and production company. We're pulling out content. Latino Cleveland is kind of how I serve locally, but now I have vision and expansion into, moving out into the United States and tapping the Hispanic market there. So, yeah.
And I love the background because it shows that you were on a mission, for lack of a better term, to help your local community, and that can grow. And I think sometimes that is about living authentically. So
Yeah.
Tell listeners, what do you mean when you say live your brand?
So when I say live your brand, so if you know that you are the best salesperson, don't be afraid to say, I'm one of the best salespeople you know. If you are a person of integrity, you say as a person, you live your brand and say, I approach everything with integrity and I make people and my clients feel comfortable. Being able to own yourself, what is the brand, just in the way, like, let's say if I'm approaching a marketing client. So the interesting thing about my background with radio advertising is I started when I was 21 years old in urban radio. And, of course, they always put you into the little mom and pop stores. So starting in my early 20s, I did like the wig store and the tobacco store and the cell phone store. And then, eventually, law firms and then national firms and then so on and so forth, and started my entrepreneurship journey as a single mom. So I hope that the show will actually encourage moms. Shout out to the mamas. I had to throw that out there.
I agree. My baby, my only son, just came home on Monday for a surprise visit. So a big shout out to the mamas, because when we get that, and when we can still be working and showing them how to represent, not only as women, but like how to treat a woman, and encouraging then eventually when they find a partner to encourage them to go out there. So I agree. Big shout out to the mamas out there.
Well, I mean, truth be told, low key, that purpose for me was always wanting to provide a better life for my children, to be able to have the work-life balance, like not being tied to the corporate 8:30 to 6:30, but being able to bring talent versus time and being able to be a good mom. How I live my brand for my family is, how can I be a kind mom, and how can my sons remember me be, like the other day, my son, I have 10-year-old twin boys, and sometimes children's language is really simple. And I was pumping gas, and when I came in the car, my son said, he's like, Mom, you're so nice. And I said, wow, and I hope that I can carry that. That's me living my brand. My goal is to be nice and that type of thing. So, yeah.
And I again, I think that is important because we show, and going a little off topic here, but we show our kids how we want to be treated, how we want to be loved. When we treat ourselves right, when we treat others right, when we love ourselves, we show them what it is. And when even if you don't think they're watching, right? So it is so important to truly always be authentic and be true to yourself. And I would love to know how, so you say you live your brand. How does that theme really reflect in your projects and in all aspects of your life?
Absolutely. So, one of my core values or brand is friendly demeanor. So I always have a positive and friendly approach to how I serve my clients. And that is how I live my brand. So, like the same way that I started to go there, sorry, that I would do a small business client and analyze what are the three things that they're about, which could be customer service and responsibility and whatever their core three is, for us to analyze ourselves as a personal brand, as a personal company, the CEO of your life, and what are yours. What are your core brands? And I carry that in the work that I do and the person that I am. So friendly demeanor, hardworking, and a person of integrity. Those are my core.
And that those are very, very important things to have, because I think when you do that, your clients respect that and they want to, show that same side. So we're talking about living, not only being passionate and living your brand, but finding your purpose. So how does one know when they have found their purpose?
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. So this is a little thing that anyone can do to really think about their purpose. Okay. So, do you want to engage with me a little bit?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Give me a second. So, I want you to close. I have to remember exactly how to do this. Close your eyes and tell me, what is something that you know how to do that you don't know how that you know how to do it, but when you do it, you feel so natural.
I would say coaching volleyball.
Wow. Coaching volleyball. Wonderful. Okay.
Because I played, right? But there's a difference between playing and coaching.
Yes.
And I coached for years, and not to pat my own back, right? But I was good at it, especially, and I used to do the older girls. And then I moved to the younger because it wasn't so much about the skill, they needed the confidence. And once they got the confidence, the skills came.
Yes.
Because many of them had skill, but they were afraid. They didn't know that they were empowered to use their voice. And so when I first started, I never knew why I was good until I brought in some of my own, my coaching clients, right? My empowerment style.
Yes.
And that was a
There.
lot of fun.
Yes, and there's so much into that. That's feeding into young women as they're on their path of growth, speaking life over them, transformation. So through volleyball, you're able to build someone's life. So volleyball is a part of your purpose, and that right there is it. And the thing is about purpose is it's not just one thing; it's multiple things. I know that part of my purpose is, one is to be a service to the Latino community. That no matter in my success, because at this point in my career, that's a part of what I do, but it's not all that I do. I'm on studio sets all the time, helping and coaching clients through video, making them kind of work through their anxiety of maybe being on camera or putting together their scripts or how to tell their company stories. But I will always serve the Latino community because, that my parents migrated here from, I'm actually visiting my brother in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I love the virtual world. So right now I'm a Tennessee Rican. And but servicing my marketing and media talents to the Latino community and
Yes.
bringing up the next generation so that will always be fulfilled. That's one. The other are the things that I do spiritually, the things that I love to do for mommies. I love to support women that are on their way to entrepreneurship with the same as you, which is just words of encouragement, some coaching, some thoughts and ideas of how to. So yes.
Well, I think that's great, because when we give back, it does come back to us, but it also just makes our society better.
Yes.
So on that note, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to go over overcoming challenges and facing fears. But before we go, Myra, tell folks how they can reach you.
Absolutely. Well, you can visit my website, which is lcmediaplus.com. I always love new followers on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is a great resource. So Myra Rosario on LinkedIn. And those are the best places. If you like what you hear today and would like to schedule a call, you can do that on lcmediaplus.com.
Wonderful. You are listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. If you missed any portion of today's episode, you can catch it on getrootedradio.com. That's getrootedradio.com. Don't forget to subscribe online to receive the latest news, events, specials, and words of encouragement. Go to getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Myra Rosario. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you.
So during the last segment, listeners got to know a little bit more about you, and we discussed about living your brand, right? Finding your passion and living your brand. This segment, I would really love to get into overcoming challenges and facing fears. So if you would be willing to share, I mean, so many of us have success stories. I always tell people, don't pay attention to Instagram, Facebook, all the different social media platforms, because a lot of times that is their A side. It doesn't always show their B side. So Myra, if you're willing, tell us some of the challenges you faced during your personal life and professional life.
Wow. I mean, I think that learning from your challenges is more valuable than learning from your successes.
Yes.
Successes are nice and they're great, but the challenges that you face or the lessons that you have to learn, those are very valuable pieces. So for me, I one of the interesting projects along my life, and I think that really launched my career, is that after being in radio for 8 years, working in national sales and working with clients, I had been approached by the NBC station, like, hey, why don't you do a Latino show? And I'm like, well, I do radio. How different can TV be? I mean, come on, So, which they're extremely different. One is, for example, average radio sales package could be $3,000, and an average TV package could be $80,000 or $30,000. So I instantly had to learn sales strategies. I had to teach myself not only the difference between selling radio and television, but selling a $3,000 package to a $30,000 and $80,000 package. Lessons that I didn't know there is the timelines are different, right? Like a $3,000 decision is very different than a $30,000 decision, let alone an $80,000 decision in regards to whoever's purchasing the service. So lessons that I had to learn, so one of the lessons that as an entrepreneur that can be harmful is when you're not thinking about, and I think that you need all three of those clients, like that $3,000 client, the $30,000 client, and the $80,000 client, but they need different timelines on approaches and closes, because otherwise, if you only focus on big, and that takes, a year and a half to close, because it needs to go through the board, and boards meet every 12 weeks. All right, and oh, sorry, it didn't make it to the agenda this week, where you're going to put it on the agenda for next week, versus, your $3,000 clients. Yeah, you know what? I got that aside in my marketing budget. I think I can invest that. And then, that type of thing. So those challenges of like those are only lessons that you can learn it by theory, but learning it in reality is a totally different thing,
Yeah.
so.
It's almost don't always go for the big win, because those little wins are going to keep you going until that big win, right? That the larger client maybe come around. And I think that is true with any entrepreneur. We need to don't always just go for the big companies, right? Because those other little companies, they could grow into big companies, and you help them along the way, and they'll remember that. And I think that is important. And you did mention something that completely agree with. Those opportunities, those failures. I mean, we're human. We will all fail. And if you think you're not going to fail, that's a failure right there, because you need to be ready for that. And you need to use those as stepping stones to keep going, because you learn so much about yourself. You learn so much about whatever business it is, whether it is your entrepreneurship, whether it is corporate world. When you have a failure, when you take the time to see what went wrong, what did I do? Maybe I didn't explain correctly? What did my group do? Do I need to improve something? And we're just that much better when we come along. And if we are honest with ourselves and we are vulnerable and we take a chance on ourselves, but also looking at what we can do better. We look at our strengths, we look at our weaknesses. We will grow. It's that growth mindset to make sure that we can move forward intentionally.
Yeah, I like to say, use your fear as a stepping stone. And
Yes.
I like what you're saying, analyze it and take this. I think what it is I don't like to walk in fear, like to expect a failure, but
Yes.
when something happens that is hurtful, then not to stay down for too long. So
Yes.
I have a 3-day rule. Boom. I'm going to be sad for 3 days and then I'm going to write it out. I mean, the pen and paper is your friend. Okay. A note taker is a history maker. Okay.
Yes, I like that. Well, and it is true. I mean, I jokingly say, and I won't say the whole phrase because, Moxie might get mad at me, but, when something knocks you down, and again, I'm not saying I set myself up for failure, but I know that not everything's going to work out perfectly. I hope it does, and I go for that. However, if something knocks me down, I'm going to look at it. I'm not going to be happy. I might be a little stunned, but I'm going to shake it off and say, you hit like a bleep and get back up.
Yep.
And go forward.
Yep.
So what would you say, what would be some advice that you would give when someone is facing a setback in their business or career?
First of all, I think that all entrepreneurs should be a part of a mastermind, to be, to have a partner in believing. I think that, even the great President Lincoln, he had a friend, and when he was making his decision on, his great big decision, we all know which one, he had his friend just listen. And sometimes, having somebody there that you can trust, who believes in your dreams, and, having that person. So I think that, don't go through it alone, having a partner in believing, having a mastermind, having your, what is your, like say, for example, for me, I love, if I'm feeling down, I like to get me a sundae and I like to go by to the beach and I like to get my pen and paper. And that's how I work it out. So have your strategy on what is your self-love, what is your self-care, that you're going to get yourself out of it and not stay down for too long about it. I think that's the biggest key. Be sad, cry it out. I think it's important to those emotions become trapped in your body. If you don't, talk it out, because if not, it becomes a trapped emotion in your body. And, run it, swim it out, and, write it out. That's my. Mm-hmm.
That is it's a good point, because we need to feel the feels, right? We need to feel all those feelings. Just don't unpack and stay there. Make sure that you do express those emotions. positively. I'm not saying go out and yell if you're angry, go out and just yell at anybody, random person, but get them out, right? I have a wave master that when I get real frustrated, upset, angry at whatever, I'll go and hit that. I'll kick that and get it out. Or, I like to go for a drive, turn up the music real loud. And, fortunate for me, it's Wisconsin, so we don't roll down windows very often. But when we do, nobody can hear me belting out very poor. That's not my future career as a singer. But, you just get it out and have that mentor, have that somebody that you can bounce off ideas off of, that you are practicing that self-care, because you do need, you mentioned it before, work-life balance, that work-life alignment, making sure that you are taking care of yourself so that you can take care of your career, your family, etc. And when we do face our challenges or face our fears, because, going into something new is scary, especially when you don't know what you don't know. And you have to learn. Either you have to educate yourself, a school, a program. You might have to educate yourself in trial and error. You need to get advice from a mentor, somebody who's been in that situation, or you need to hire the right people to say, I don't know how to do this. I might not have the desire to learn how to do this, but there are others out there that know how to do this. And let me try to employ them so that I can move forward. And it's scary, getting out and starting your own business, doing entrepreneurship, or taking that next career step can be very intimidating and scary. But if we don't ever take the risk, that can also be a failure in my eyes, because you never tried. And then you're not living your passion. You're not living your brand by going out there and going after something that you really want.
Yeah, there's one additional key to what you were to say.
Yes.
And it's very important for you to have a self-image of yourself. Like, you have to see what your best version of yourself looks like. 3 years from now, what is your best version? Is it on vacation? Is it, working 15 hours a week? To make a brave move, you have to have that self-image of yourself. And we can talk about that more after the break.
Yes, definitely. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about wearing many hats. But before we go, Myra, tell listeners how they can learn more about you and your services.
Okay, great. Thank you. My website is lcmediaplus, plus.com, lcmediaplus.com. You can, if you like what you hear, you can schedule a call there. And then I also like followers on LinkedIn. You can find me at Myra Rosario.
Thank you so much. I am Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio, living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Back on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Don't forget to visit getrootedradio.com to listen to a replay of this episode, sign up for helpful tips, and learn about upcoming events. That's getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Myra Rosario. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hello. Thank you.
So during the last two segments, we've discussed being authentic, being vulnerable, and overcoming obstacles by facing fears. During this segment, we're going to talk about all the hats we wear every day. So let's just kick it off by Myra. What are some of the hats that you wear?
Wow, what are some of the hats I wear? Here we go. This is a nice one. So before I overwhelm all the listeners, I do want to say that the beauty about being in your purpose is you have the grace to do it all. When you're not in your purpose, you don't have the grace through it all. And what grace means to me is just being able to get through it effortlessly. Like it comes together. It just comes together because you're in your purpose. So for me, first and foremost, my purpose is my children. I'm a mother, a solo parent. And so I know that a mother's voice is so powerful. So I have a 24-year-old daughter who has graduated with a bachelor's degree from college already. She's a social justice worker. She's a great person and a social worker, investing in her life into children. It wasn't easy with her at first, when I was a 20-year-old mom with her. But that's a different story for a different show. But then 12 years later, I had 12-year-old, I'm sorry, I have 10-year-old twin boys now. I have twin boys. So when I was doing the television show, the twins were like 1 and 2 years old in diapers.
Oh,
And really incredible, I had to lean on sitters and nannies and daycares, and school structure. As a salesperson, you have multiple clients, and even in that, there's all those little small hats, because, working for a construction company versus a law firm versus McDonald's, those are all different thoughts and strategies, and you have to be able to, dive into those things. Yeah, I also think that friendships are important. I think that they have their time and place, but they're very important to our growth in life, and so being able to balance that and all. And I think, people minimizing that friends are important is not a good thing, and it could be a path to loneliness, so.
yes.
Mhm.
And I think I like I always tell people it's an I am statement, right? When somebody says I am, what does that mean? And, I am a mother. I am an entrepreneur. I am a coach. I am, an aunt, a sister, friend, advocate, all these things that you think about that you are. And those are the hats that we all wear. And it's about balancing that. And how do we do that? Like, how are you doing that? Because I know I have some very strong opinions, and my listeners know that on how we do balance our life, and not only do that work-life balance, but that work-life alignment. And that's not just work; it's our hobbies, it's our family, it's our career, it's our community. How do we balance that? So how do you do that?
So there's a few things. And I'm going to start with one is befriending your calendar. Like, become a friend with your calendar. And I know we've all kind of gotten better about it, but I do want to share some tips and tricks with the calendar. The other way is like, what's normal is not natural. So for example, going back to natural ways of going to bed early, waking up early, the type of foods that we eat. So electricity makes us stay up till 10, 11, 12, 1, 2 in the morning and wake up at 10, 11 in the morning. It's not natural, and you'll always will feel off balance. I had a really interesting moment, maybe like about 3 years ago, where, I don't know, I just started paying attention to squirrels and just how every day they come out at the same time, or what happens when the sun comes out and what time they go to bed, and just looking at how nature is and realizing that we're part of nature, and just sacred sleep. I think it keeps us young. It refreshes our mind. That creates balance in itself when you wake up at what time. And the farmers were correct, which is probably that 5:20 to 6:20 in the morning window is when we should be waking up, and we should be going to bed at that 9 to 10 window, in my opinion.
It's all interconnected, right? If you're not getting enough sleep, that can affect your emotional, your physical, your psychological, your spiritual well-being. And we're all interconnected. So then we maybe don't eat right, or we're moody, or we feel like we need to have more caffeine because we didn't sleep well. And then and it's all this ripple effect that keeps, yep.
That's right. So you're off balance. So if you want to let work-life balance, number one is be balanced. Come back more to the natural ways of eating, sleeping, really doing some studies on that, in regards to our zirconial rhythms. There are some individuals that are made to be more night owls, but not everybody is. Sometimes I think people are forcing themselves to stay out at bars till 10:30, 11:30, 12:30 at night. They don't know how much those drinks affect their sleep.
Yeah.
Causes tension in the body and the jaw. And so you wake up and you don't feel good. You don't feel balanced.
And I think it is that boundary management is when you said befriend your calendar, is setting those appropriate boundaries with yourself and with others so that you aren't always having all these balls in the air that you're juggling, or that you feel guilty because now I've missed this but didn't do this, and they're expecting me to do this, and now they're expecting me to do this, but I need to do this, right? So what sort of advice could you give somebody about not feeling guilty and juggling all these different expectations?
Always come from doing your best. Always come from doing your best. Like it's kind of one of my core values, one of the things I live as a brand, which is I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best, And if you come from your best, it might not always be the best, but it's coming from your best, and eventually it will be your best. You know what I mean? So I think that's, one way. As far as the calendar and setting boundaries, having time for yourself in your calendar, you have to unplug. We're creatures that, just like cell phones, need to recharge. We need to recharge, so I cut from Thursday from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. and I'll have childcare come to my home. And mama goes to the lake, or mama goes to eats her ice cream, or mama goes and meets her friend. It lives in my calendar. It's scheduled time that is made for me and for my friendships. And I think that think about things in your life. One is time to meditate and spiritual things. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. We have to connect to the divine and the ways that brings balance in itself. So even when we talk about nature, we're taking care of our human body, but our spiritual selves, and that's connecting to our hearts, and connecting with our hand is connected to our hearts. I don't know if you know this, but like if you type, that's your brain, but if you write, that's your speaking from your heart. There's science behind it from Heart Math Institute. Anyone can look it up. And I think you get different messages from typing versus writing. So if you really want to know what's on your heart, what's sitting on you or weighing on you, definitely spending time with that pen and paper.
And I think one of the things you said is, always try your best. And I think going along with that too is always assume positive intent from others. Because if you're always trying your best, and I get this doesn't apply to everybody, most people are also trying their best. So if we always assume positive intent from somebody else, that way we're not always on that defensive, and setting those boundaries, because sometimes we assume people know our boundaries, but we're all different. My boundaries are going to be different than your boundaries. My best on a given day might look different than your best. And so we need to make sure that we are respectful of each other on that.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, are we going to a break? I'm sorry.
Well, we're going to go take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to discuss partnership and believing.
Okay.
So
great.
Stay tuned, folks. This is Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. If you missed any of the information during the last segments, go to getrootedradio.com to listen to the replay. Don't forget to subscribe, sign up for tips and special events, and pricing for upcoming coaching sessions at getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Myra Rosario. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell listeners how they can learn more about you, your services, and reach out for any more information.
Absolutely. You can check out my website, which is lcmediaplus.com. And if you like what you hear, you can read a little bit more about me, my services, and schedule a call. It's lcmediaplus.com.
Wonderful. So now during the first segment, in the intro, I had mentioned that you were a graduate of Brave Thinking Masters.
Yes.
What is this and what has it taught you?
So Brave Thinking Institute is with Mary Morrissey and her family, which she's a great teacher in transformation. She's someone who has studied with Raymond Hollowell, with Bob Proctor. They consider her, if you're an entrepreneur and don't know who Bob Proctor is, then you need to look at who Bob Proctor is. If you're an entrepreneur and haven't read Think and Grow Rich, these are like essentials. These are essentials. So Brave Thinking Institute is really an investment in really learning the universal laws and truths, and applying it, applying it, having that real structure of support. And it's a brave thinking move to become a part of that circle. So I've learned so many things, valuable things along the way. And I think that, for one of the breakthroughs is that what we think about, we bring about. And really and truly, what we're doing is really reprogramming our mind, having mind shifts in our thoughts, listening to the words that we say, recapturing them, reframing them. And this is really just at the highest level of integrity, being impeccable with your word, which I'm sure people, if they know what I'm talking about, Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz, there's just certain principles that are very essential in regards to changing and transforming your life.
So I know exactly what you're talking about here. So just repeat those couple books that I think listeners should listen to from an entrepreneurship perspective. So it's
Yes. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That I think is very important because he interviewed so many entrepreneurs, and this was a time before media. So it's very raw and real. And Bob Proctor is another very transformative teacher. And those are two. Oh, and The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Absolutely.
yes.
Yes.
And if you haven't familiarized yourself with those folks, they're great. You won't be disappointed. They're actually wonderful works. So you have studied many of these principles. So what some of the techniques that you think listeners should to come away with, right? So that they can address their challenges, so that they can really find their purpose and live their brand.
Right. Well, I want to give one more book a shout out. The Book of Proverbs. I just had to throw that one out there because it has very interesting information for entrepreneurs. Look, seek and find. So in regards to techniques, I'm going to go to one of the things that in Think and Grow Rich that they talk about, which is auto-suggestion. That's one. Okay. And also I had mentioned it earlier in the podcast about having a self-image of yourself being this accomplished person, being this successful person. So the Heart Math Institute and Brave Thinking Institute both have done the science and the research and know that you have to envision yourself 3 years from now. So the 3 years from now would be what? July 1, what?
May 27th.
2027. So we're in July 2024. It would be July 2027. So the science behind the 3 years in advance, if you try to envision yourself 1 year in advance or 2 years in advance, your whole body kind of goes, no, I can't do that because I haven't paid that off, or so-and-so has to go to college, or the kids are still in diapers, whatever it is. But 3 years from now, your brain just goes, well, I don't know, maybe, right? So the technique that I like to do is called a time machine. And I did learn this through Mary Morrissey's group as well. And what it is, and this is why it's important to have a partner in believing, because you can come with your partner in believing and just really, truly imagine who and what you can be 3 years from now. So let's say if you are a single mom right now who can barely pay rent, you just start, you're working farmer markets and you're living your purpose and you're living your dream. but you're only making half of what you really want to make. Having a friend and going into a time machine. So what I like to do is, we can stand and you can turn and say 2025, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you introduce yourself as your future self. And you have that partner and believing with you. And, I don't know, do you want to try it, Erica? Do we have time?
Sure.
Wanna try it?
We've got a couple minutes. Yeah.
Have you ever done such an exercise?
I have something. It's almost what we were calling it is come as your future self, right?
Right. Okay. So come as your future self 3 years in advance. And the most important thing to do is really to feel the feeling. So in Think and Grow Rich and auto-suggestion, it's not, if you just think it but don't feel it, it doesn't have the same effect. Because your subconscious and your mind can't really tell the future or the past. It just is like, oh, hey, this is happening now, so you want to feel that feeling. So before we start, there's 4 areas that we want a time machine on. We're going to do it in 4 quadrants. Okay. One is in your health. So how you're feeling, what are you doing? The other is going to be in your wealth. And then the other is going to be in your time and freedom. And then the other one is relationship. They don't prioritize in any order, but it's just kind of what just came to me as doing it in that order. So I'm going to turn in my chair and I'm going into a time machine. I don't know if you want to try, but I don't want you to knock nothing down. Or maybe I'll just do a little turn, but I'll start. Would you like to start, or would you?
Yeah, because we only have about 2 minutes till the end. So I'll say I am happy, healthy, wealthy, cancer-free. I am wealthy in my love relationships. I have the time and freedom to travel and do speaking engagements, to share what I have learned with folks all over the world. And my wealth is not necessarily financial wealth, but that in my love of family, friends, and significant other.
Wow, it's beautiful. And so it is. For me, I'm so happy and grateful that I'm feeling young and vibrant all the time. My muscles are strong. Every bone in my body is strong. My chemicals are balanced. I'm happy and grateful that I'm able to have enough income and resources to give to others, to share, to lift other business owners, to create generational wealth for my family. I'm grateful that I'm able to travel, to be able to go places I've never seen before with my children. And happy and grateful I have a best friend in my life. He's the master of fun. And that's my future self.
So it is.
Right now.
Yes. Thank you, Myra. Folks, we have run out of time, but we could go on for this for, I think, another hour at least. So please look up Myra, learn more about what she has to offer in her services. And thank you so much again for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank you all for tuning in to Get Rooted Radio. If you missed any part of today's episode or want to listen again, go to getrootedradio.com for the podcast. And don't forget to tune in the first and third Monday of each month at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, and 2 p.m. Pacific right here on Transformation Talk Radio. Thank you for tuning in. Have an amazing day. And I'm looking forward to the next time on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Visit getrootedradio.com if you've missed any part of this hit show, and tune in on transformationtalkradio.com to live fearlessly in your more and powerfully rooted in your unlimited yes. For more information and to work with Erica directly, visit getrootedradio.com. That's getrootedradio.com, and get ready to live it up, love it up, and let it go.